Good evening. I would like to call to order this February 21st meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. We will stand and remain standing for the invocation and the pledge. The invocation will be led by Councilman Randy Cluott and the pledge by Eagle Scout Andrew Poche.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we ask that you look upon the people of Ascension Parish in the region and take care of them. Lord, we are blessed tonight to have a great group of scouts here tonight and their great parents that instill the values in them: citizenship, family, and leadership. We also blessed tonight to have cancer survivors and the people that support them. We ask that you take care of all those folks and those caregivers and give them patience. With a special part that we ask that you look upon the Melanson family of Sorrento for the loss of Mike Melanson, the son of Mr. Victor Melanson and Miss Brenda Melanson, the past mayor of Sorrento. We ask that you look upon their families and take them through this and hold their hands as they grieve and work through this. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Eric, will you come to the podium, please?
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, all members of the council are present. There are no chairs addition. There is one item on the agenda that we will pass, and that is item number 14. Item number 14 will be passed. If you are here to comment on any item on the agenda, please come forward, sign an agenda, slip, a green or a red one, and pass that to Cinnamon. She will pass that to us, and we will see to it that you have an opportunity to speak at the appropriate time. At this time,
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, sir.
May I make a comment on the item we're passing on?
You certainly may, Mr. Sadler.
Thank you. I would just like to request that the chair and whoever else would be appropriate try in the future. That item is in my district. I've had numerous contacts from constituents, some of which came here tonight to testify. Obviously, that's not going to happen. All I would ask is that in the future, if I could get a heads up before coming to the meeting to learn actually from my voter, not anyone else, that we're going to pull something like that. I just would like to know about it ahead of time. I do have some issues, and I'm not sure where the law falls on this. As a former planning and zoning commissioner, I know that the code reads that when a rezoning occurs and it is vetted and voted upon at the planning and zoning commission level, in this case the zoning commission, this is an item that was rejected 7-0 by vote, that it's required that it comes to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the council for us to either agree with that vote or deny that vote and vote ourselves. Since that's not going to happen tonight, I would have appreciated not only knowing that it wasn't going to happen, as well as what the reasons why. And I thank you for listening.
You're welcome, Mr. Satterley. Thank you for your comment. Item number 5, presentations. Item 5A, proclamation, paint the town purple.
We can do the scout.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So we'll do a certificate of achievement, Eagle Scout, Andrew Poche.
Come on up, Mr. Poche. Very happy to honor you tonight with the work you have done. The Parish of Ascension is proud to present the certificate of achievement to Andrew Poche of Troop 65 for his achievements, the rank of Eagle Scout. The Eagle Scout rank is the highest rank available in the Boy Scouts of America. The title of Eagle Scout is held for life, thus giving rise to the phrase, once an eagle, always an eagle. Thank you for your service, and we're proud to have you here tonight. Thank you.
This is a young man who did the flag. Oh, okay.
Talk some more about it.
Can we get the family to join us in the photo? Y'all, because y'all earn this rank as much as
Just want y'all to know the cameraman is an Eagle Scout.
and that's the second Eagle Scout in this family. And you're well on your way. Thank you.
If you didn't notice, when you exit the building, look at the bottom to the right, this mailbox-looking thing that's red, white. It is a mailbox, red, white, and blue. And what he did, he put that here, and he put one at our building, your building, and one at City Hall in Gonzales to collect flags that need to be properly disposed. So we appreciate you for all your efforts.
Andrew, how many flags did you collect?
Over the 2 months that the boxes have been out, it's been over 125 flags.
Thank you for your service, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Martin, are we at the Paint the Town
No, we're
Purple now?
painting the town
All right.
purple.
Thank you so much. There you go.
Jumped.
That's okay. It's all right. We're flexible.
See what y'all, oh, good. Here you go. I can't read the small print, so let's, okay. Whereas Paint the Parish Purple is an activity of the American Cancer Society that promotes cancer awareness by giving individuals and communities the opportunity to fight back against cancer. And whereas, according to the American Cancer Society, more than 300,000 men and more than 275,000 women in the United States will die from cancer this year. And estimated by the American Cancer Society also show that there will be more than 855,000 new cases for men and more than 810,000 new cases for women in the United States. And whereas money raised during Paint the Parish Purple of Ascension supports the American Cancer Society's mission to save lives and creating a world with less cancer and more birthdays. By helping people stay well, by helping people get well, by finding cures for cancer, and by fighting back. And whereas the American Cancer Society Relay for Life in Ascension Parish, which is a major fundraising event for the cancer research, will be Saturday, March 23rd, 2019, at Cabela's in Gonzales. And whereas the American Cancer Society funded more than $160 million in cancer research last year through monies raised in communities across the United States. Now therefore, I, Kenny Matassa, President of Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by virtue and authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim March 1st, 2019 as Paint the Parish Purple Day within Ascension Parish, and encourage all residents to wear purple on that day and bring awareness to the need of more cancer research. Okay, let's go take the picture.
Okay.
We'll take the picture and then we'll talk.
We can just get
Yeah,
behind them.
so don't stand back here.
Gentlemen, if y'all want to get behind them.
Hold on, we got one more comment. No,
They're slow.
y'all don't want to. No, we stay up there.
We're good. We're good.
Y'all are getting so good at posing. I don't have to arrange anyone, or nobody's hiding. Most of you look good. That's terrific, thank you.
I just want everybody to know, sitting up there, we have 3 survivors, councilmen right now. Randy Cluart, Benny Johnson, and Todd Lambert, that I know of.
That's what you know about.
Thank you very much for having us. My name is Carrie DeShea-Miat, and I am not only a volunteer with American Cancer Society and a committee member for Relay for Life of Ascension, I'm also a cancer survivor. April will be 10 years cancer-free for me with breast cancer. And I want to thank you for supporting this event every year, for helping us paint the parish purple one day every year in support of the American Cancer Society, and mostly in support of people like myself and 3 of you who are survivors, and in memory of those that we've lost to this horrible disease. It's these dollars and this effort that makes such a difference in helping us create more birthdays. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cluart.
Yes, Mr. President and
Yes, sir.
Council, just real quick, for these ladies that's here tonight and everybody that works so hard on this event every year, if you can make it, make it. But if you can support it, support it. There's multiple ways to get your support into them. And it's just a wonderful event. It's a heart-jerking event. But the support goes 100%, and it goes to finding a cure. And believe me, in the last 30 years, they've made leaps and bounds in cancer research and treatment. And once again, these ladies will tell you, and they'll tell you when you're there, go to the doctor, get some early checkups. Catching it early is the key. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Randy.
And for y'all knowledge, you know, we had operation at the cancer building and it flooded, and right now it's being done by Dr. Adams, and we're still doing it in Ascension, and anybody that y'all know that needs to be checked out, please send them there. And for y'all knowledge, there are several of our employees have cancer right now. It's fighting it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, St. Teresa of Avila 60th anniversary. Avila, excuse me. I'm a little Baptist girl. Avila. I've lived here all my life and didn't know that.
City in Spain, just east of
Thank you. It's a city in Spain, just east of Madrid.
Go ahead. There was no diocese in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Wait, she's arranging people.
Yes, sir. Okay. Whereas on June 30th, 1957, Archbishop Rummel urged for the Arthur Lear to build a parochial school at St. Teresa of Avila in Gonzales. In 1957, a building drive began with General O.J. Daigle and 8 parishioners who set out to raise $93,000. The 860 families of St. Teresa pledged 4% of their weekly income to help raise the $93,000. Whereas on January 1958, Father Lear secured the support of the Sisters of the Most Holy Sacrament to staff the school, and construction began on December 28, 1958. The Sisters of Most Holy Sacrament were principals, assistant principals, teachers' aides, and nursery workers. This order of nuns was present from 1959 to 2014. Especially Sister Micah DeHart in 1979 to 2010, 36 years, and Sister Diane Dordan from 1978 to 2011, 33 years. And whereas St. Teresa of Avila School opened with 4 grades in September of 1959, with Sister Maria Immaculata serving as first principal, and 4 sisters of MHS staffing the school. There were initially enrollment of 276 students in 4 grades. In September 1966, St. Teresa became a junior high school with Sister Maria Rosetta as the second principal. And in 1973, St. Teresa became an interparochial school when St. Mark Church Parish was established. And whereas in 1980, Mr. J. Sullivan became the second lay principal and made great advances at St. Teresa School. A new library was built in 1981. Full-day kindergarten opened in 1982. School was air-conditioned in 1982. After-school care opened in 1986. Pre-kindergarten began in 1987. Apple Computer Lab added in 1991. Asbestos enclosement in 1991. Gym opened in 1992. Science lab and computer lab in 2001. Explore feasibility of enrollment extension in 2001. And whereas, as the population of Ascension Parish grew, the demand for Catholic education rose. St. Teresa opened a 3rd section of kindergarten in 1981, and a feasibility expansion study began with 6 pastors representing Holy Rosary, St. Anne, St. Anthony, St. Gabriel, St. John, St. Mark, and St. Teresa. A plan was formulated in 2001 for St. John the Evangelist in Prairieville to allow a pre-K program to move into the educational center, and temporary partnership was established for the school years between 2003 and 2008 in order to provide time for a permanent solution for the increasing enrollment. Demands in 2004, 4 classes of kindergarten were moved from St. John to St. John, and the school program was named St. Teresa Early Learning Center, then became St. John Primary in 2006. Mrs. Christine Musso was named principal of St. Teresa in 2005 and remains in that role today. Whereas St. Teresa of Avila School became the East Ascension, East Iberville Regional Catholic School Partnership in 2012. And whereas the success of St. Teresa of Avila School began in 1958 with support of many people working tirelessly to ensure the continued opportunity of a Catholic education for those who desired it. This support continues today in the form of permanent partnership of church pastors, parents, parishioners, faculty and students, administration, support staff, and members of the community working together to ensure development of the service to one another through Catholic values, as all strive for spiritual growth and academic excellence. Now, therefore, I, Kenny Matassa, President of Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by virtue and authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim the year 2019 as St. Teresa of Avila School 60th anniversary.
All y'all who need confession, y'all come on.
Do our procession to the right.
Y'all move to the right about 2 feet.
Yeah,
That's
to
your
the right
right.
about 2
Right.
feet.
Kenny?
Kenny, y'all move to this side about 2 feet.
Martin?
Move it that way.
If the council could shift, oh no.
We can't shift, we're up
We
against the
have a
wall.
wall.
We can stand on the podium?
Come on, let's get the St.
There's another one.
Oh, that's wonderful. Everybody look over here now. Oh, yeah, y'all look great. Look good for 60, wow. Chris, can you talk a little about the school?
I just want to say thank you to President Kenny Matassa. He and I go a long way back because I started at St. Teresa in 1980, and I did have the privilege to teach his boys, and that was a pleasure for me. All good. Every bit of it was good. And it's a pleasure to still be with the school. And we have gone through a lot of changes, and a lot of people have helped us with that, and I greatly, appreciate the support of the community. We are now the EA-EI Catholic Partnership Regional because we are 7 pastors on a board with the principals. Ms. Nakhan, who is the principal at St. John Primary, and myself at St. Teresa, we make up the board, and we represent 9 church parishes. And they have helped us tremendously by giving to our budget yearly to help us to educate the children in Ascension Parish whose parents want them to have a Catholic education. And we appreciate your support so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D on our agenda, I'll remind the council that in the first meeting of this month in Donaldsonville, there was a review of the community needs assessment done around Prevost Hospital. And item D is a review of the community needs assessment for the East Bank. I'll call up Mr. Andy Allen with InHealth. Andy and his team did the community needs assessment, and we're delighted to have him here to report on what our needs assessment turned out to be on the East Bank. Thank you so much. Hi, Andy.
Hello. To make my way through the crowd here.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Well, thanks for having us. We did a presentation to the board of St. Elizabeth about the community health needs assessment, and your chair, who does double duty on that board, asked if we could come and tell you a little bit about it as well. So I brought just a couple slides. Let's see if I can get them to come up here. My counterpart at the hospital had to make a last-minute trip to Monroe, so he's not here to do the presentation with me, but we worked hand in hand with the folks at St. Elizabeth. They had a great team to do this assessment. And just to give you a quick overview, this is something that's required of hospitals to maintain their nonprofit status every 3 years as part of the Affordable Care Act. A lot of states were doing that beforehand, but Louisiana wasn't one of them. So this is the 3rd iteration that St. Elizabeth has been through with this assessment. So the intention is that the hospital would go through this process of determining what are the needs of the community that it serves. And for the purposes of this assessment, St. Elizabeth chose Ascension Parish as a whole as that community. So the assessment is reflective of that. And it's accompanied by an implementation strategy. So if the assessment tells you what the needs are, the implementation strategy then is supposed to answer the question, so what is St. Elizabeth going to do about this over the next couple of years? So we went through this process. It probably took 6-7 months of working with the folks at the hospital. We did interviews. Your parish president was kind enough to grant us some time. We went and talked to mayors in different parts of the parish, Mayor Sullivan in Donaldsonville, Mayor Lambert in Sereno. We did 2 focus groups, one for community members and organizational leaders, and one for faith-based leaders, which was really an interesting group to get their feedback on. We did surveys. About 1,700 people responded to the survey. We had a separate one for physicians and a separate one for community organizations that were smaller but more targeted. And then the steering committee came back together with all that information and prioritized it into what they had heard, what they saw in the data, and what they were determining these would be the needs that we work on over the next 3 years. So what came out of that process was 3 significant needs that St. Elizabeth identified. One, behavioral health. The second was health education and prevention. And the third was weight management. So some of these are tied together. We looked at both what we heard and what we know that the hospital is engaged in working on and felt that they could make some significant difference in over the 3-year period. And so then we took that and made the implementation strategy where these are discrete steps that the hospital and the partners of the hospital can take over the next couple of years. So the last thing that I had to share with you is really, what does that process look like? We're helping St. Elizabeth with measuring what they're doing, right? There's some things that the hospital's engaged in over the next couple of years that that's really theirs to do, and we're going to help them with process improvement and measurement around that. They've also been out engaging community partners, knowing that the hospital is not going to change all of these big ticket items by themselves. So they're looking at Ascension Counseling Center as somebody who's working with the hospital and pulling in some of the statistics and metrics that those organizations are working on to fill this out. So that is the 20,000-foot view. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions?
I have one.
Mr. Kluwa.
Yeah. How did this basically, you did a west side and now east side. Were the needs, were the discussions, were the needs pretty much the same?
There were some significant differences between the two sides of the parish. So, and if you look at, and they've got the implementation strategy and the assessment are both on St. Elizabeth's website. But if you look at their implementation strategy, they do have some focused areas on the West Bank where they've got the clinic, particularly around behavioral health and how they want to increase access to behavioral health providers over there. That was something that we heard both from the mayor and from the survey results pretty clearly. Well, that's about 2016 flood too. That had happened. That had not happened at the point where the last assessment was done and had occurred in the intervening time. So, a lot of needs that arose out of that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. President.
One thing you don't see up there is the need for people without insurance. Because if y'all know, we went into partnership with St. Elizabeth years ago, and at our health unit, we see those people in the middle with no insurance. Just the other day, they had a kid that went to a doctor and said he thought he had a heart problem. So I called Victor up at St. Elizabeth and got him an appointment on the facility on the airline. So we got a great partnership with St. Teresa, have been for years, and so that is one need that has been taken care of. So just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for bringing that to everyone's attention. I do want you to know that Scott Wester, who is the president of Our Lady of the Lake, and now, of course, as you all know, St. Elizabeth has been absorbed into the lake, and we are Our Lady of the Lake at St. Elizabeth campus. And Scott had planned to be here tonight, most of you will probably remember him at one time. He was the CEO of St. Elizabeth. Now he's in a much grander job and does a wonderful job of that. He was going to come and be here tonight to be introduced, to meet all of you, and he called me right before 5 o'clock and just said his time was had just gotten away from him and he could not come. But he will come again. And so I look forward to introducing him here. And I thank you, Andy, for coming and presenting the Community Needs Assessment for St. Elizabeth.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And Andy will tell you, I told him he doesn't have to stay anymore. It's not impolite to leave.
Yeah, gotta use dinner, right?
Bless his heart. Thank you so much. Right, item number E, an update on the HUD Section 8 program. Ms. Martha and Mr. Roberto Maceda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the
Hi.
council. President Matassa has asked us to make sure that we keep y'all abreast on this program. So at this time, I'd like Mr. Roberto to give you a report on where we are with Section 8. Roberto?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to make a brief presentation of your Section 8 program. As you know, that is a federal program that provides rental assistance to very low and extremely low residents of the parish. That assistance is provided to a limited number of families or individuals due to the number of vouchers that the federal government assigned to us several years back. My report includes some statistics on the folks that we are assisting, as well as some financial information about the program during 2018. We currently administer 106 vouchers, meaning we're providing assistance to 106 families or individuals, of which 93 are part of the 101 vouchers that are parish vouchers. The additional 13 are what we call transfer-ins. Those are folks that have vouchers from other areas, other parishes, other municipalities that come in and wish to live in Ascension Parish. That is part of the portability aspect of Section 8, and actually families that receive vouchers have the flexibility to move around the country, really. So altogether, we have 106, and this is an average per month. The leasing rate, meaning the amount of leased up families compared to the total, is 93. The percentage of funds used is 100.7%, meaning we're using a little bit more money that we're receiving from HUD. Of course, the difference is made by a HUD-held reserve that we keep, as well as a balance on our HAP payments, housing assistance payments. So that allows us to go beyond the 100%. But those two figures of the leasing rate of 92 and using 100% of the funds are very favorable in the eyes of HUD. And at the end, I will show you the latest report from HUD on our program, and they give us high marks on the administration of the program. The next item, we spent an average of $55,000 in rental assistance. Of course, these are the funds, these are the monies that we pay landlords, the different landlords that participate in the program, on behalf of the families. And on an average, we assist the families at about $592 per month, meaning, for instance, if the total rent is $800, we assist with a $529, and the balance is paid directly, the family pays directly that to the landlord. We have an average about 60 to 62 landlords participating in the program. Item G, the demographics of the head of the household of those participating in the program include 30% of them are disabled, receive some kind of SSI or some disability from the government. Elderly, 12% of our tenants are elderly, and then 10% are elderly and disabled. As far as the age groups that we are assisting, our oldest tenant being assisted is 82, the youngest one is 25, and you see the different groups and the percentages for those groups. Currently, we have 30 families in our waiting list. The waiting list moves relatively slow because since we are spending all the money that we're receiving, about the only time that we can assist a new family is when one of our tenants leaves, or in the case of program violations, we have to remove a family for primarily not reporting income. So also we have a referral list of about 81 landlords. And these are landlords that call my office. We have a process by which we give them the information necessary to be on our referral list. Finally, attached to this front page is the latest evaluation from the HUD office in New Orleans. It's signed by Ms. Cheryl Williams, the Director of Office of Public Housing for the Field Office of New Orleans. And somewhere about halfway on the first page, it says your overall performance rating is high. So I take pride that our office is doing a good job. Unfortunately, you know, the demand for this program is much greater than what the folks that we can help. And if you recall, at the last meeting of April the 19th, you had requested for me to inquire with HUD in New Orleans as to getting more vouchers so we can help more folks. Unfortunately, there's no new funding availability, and there are many reasons for that, but primarily is the federal budget with the debt and, you know, different factors. They're not giving any new vouchers. Finally, I'm pleased to announce you that today I received a notice from the central office in Washington from HUD that the budget for this Section 8 program finally is going to be issued to the different communities that have this program. It was delayed because of the partial closure of the federal government, but we are breathing with a little bit more relief knowing that we will have our funds throughout the year. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Let me see if there are any. Gentlemen, do we have any questions? Mr. President? I'm sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but anybody that lives in the state of Louisiana can take their certificate and move to any parish they want. They can take one out of Ascension and move to New Orleans and whatever. Is that correct?
Well, the concept of portability established by HUD says that when we do the intake for the waiting list, if that person that is calling to be on the waiting list can prove that at the time of the call, they were residents of Ascension Parish. When we get to that name and we issue the voucher, they have the ability to take the voucher and move to another parish, move to another state. On the other side of the coin, if somebody calls for the waiting list, and remember it's a 1-800 number, so folks can call from anywhere really. So if the call that comes in is from a person that lives outside Ascension Parish, say for instance somebody calls from Orleans Parish, when that name comes up on the waiting list, that family has to relocate to Ascension Parish at least for 1 year, and then they can port back to Orleans Parish or back to Houston, or so there's flexibility.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for all the hard work you do in this federal program. You better cross the T's and dot the I's, and this man has been doing a great job. And from time to time I get calls, and one of the biggest calls is I don't get enough money. Well, he doesn't make those rules, okay? And so if you got any questions, if you get any calls, you call him up, and if he can't answer it because of what somebody's telling you, he will get back to you quick, I promise you. I thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Gentlemen, any questions? Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, Roberta, hey, thanks for the report. You know I'm one of them that like to see you up here. Roberta, I know you say we're not going to get an increase. You don't foresee us getting an increase, but do you have indication that we may be losing numbers in the future based on how this program is going?
Actually, the report that I received today, the Section 8 program nationwide for 2019 is going to have an increase of 2% compared to 2018. So nationwide, they are increasing the amount, not necessarily the number of vouchers, but the amount that different programs received. And that is just to keep up with inflation as well as with the increase in rents. We saw that in this parish very vividly after the flooding, when landlords started reconstructing and providing, renovated rental units. They started requesting increases, and so, the program nationwide is going to receive a 2% increase for 2019.
Appreciate that 2%. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for Roberto.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kluwat.
Yeah, Roberto, thank you. Quick question. I want to make sure I'm clear that on how the vouchers you can gain. I'm saying I'm searching for the answer. Do you gain or lose vouchers? You said someone outside the parish or someone can apply, and when they get qualified and you got a place on your list, they get here. And if they stay 1 year, then they can move to San Francisco, wherever, New York, wherever they want to go, and they stay qualified. Do you lose a voucher when someone qualifies and then moves out the parish? Do you lose a voucher number of qualified?
I'm glad that you asked that question, because what happens is this. If it is an Ascension Parish voucher, okay, and the person or the family qualifies for portability, and they choose to move to, say, in this case, San Francisco. Well, when you compare the rents in Ascension Parish to the rents in San Francisco, that family could take the space of 3 or 4 families. Okay, for instance, if that voucher is worth $900 in Ascension Parish, and that family wants to move to San Francisco, well, probably for that 2 or 3 bedroom voucher, the rent in San Francisco may be $2,200. So in those cases, we have a condition for that family, and we will say, okay, we can port you to San Francisco. However, San Francisco will have to agree to absorb your voucher, and they will then pay from the San Francisco budget. Okay? So, yeah, that voucher can leave, but we don't have to follow the rent to pay in San Francisco.
Okay, well, I'm still going to continue on my question. When that voucher leaves, do you have less vouchers in Ascension Parish?
No. We always have the same. Yeah.
Okay.
In that case, what we'd do is we would have a new space open, and then we'll take the next person from the waiting list.
Because I'm just saying, if I was in another parish in a large municipality and I was 350th on the list and come apply over here and try to, bump up and get on the list, spend a year, and I'm in.
Yeah, unfortunately, we see that a lot from neighboring parishes.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. And trust me, they'll do their very best to try to say, I can't find anything in Ascension Parish. Can I lease up where I came from? I'm not going to mention the name of the other parishes, but we have to be stern and say, no, you applied to Ascension Parish, and then if you want to live in the other community, then you apply, somewhere else.
And I guess my last thing, and we went over it the last time, is I guess I look at your percentages of the age groups, and then you got 51% in age 30 to 49.
Correct.
And, that's
That's our largest percentage, yes. And remember, this program, even though is for low and very low income families, the program allows for employment. In fact, we encourage the employment. We follow very closely changes in income or terminations of employment, because the income is critical in determining how much the family pays towards the rent and how much the parish pays towards the rent.
Well, as always, you know, keeping our faith in mankind, that we hope that this program does what it was intended to do, is help people out.
Right.
Everybody gets down and out sometimes, and that I just look at that primary working years age group there, you know.
Right.
So,
Correct.
and I'm sure some of them may be disabled. You understand?
Exactly.
And, you know, so
That's correct.
you know they need help.
Yeah.
So
And I may add quickly, we've had 2 or 3 cases in which the families will call and say, thank you very much, I don't need the assistance anymore. And they may leave the program for many reasons, but, you know, you're right.
I just want to make it clear that in a lot of, in some cases or a lot of cases, that it's a temporary need that people need to get them through life circumstance.
Correct, correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
Councilman Satterley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Macedo, before you go, excellent report. Thank you very much, as usual. I'm just curious, how much money would a participant, I'll just call them a tenant in the program, in the Section 8 housing program, be allowed, you say you encourage them to work and get a job, to make before it would bump them out of the program? And my guess would be, without putting words in your mouth, if they're being supplemented $592 a month, after taxes, you wouldn't want to get a job that would, you know, pay, I don't know, $800 or $900, because then it would be a wash. So what is the threshold of low income before they're bumped out of the program?
Right. The federal government publishes every year the income limits based on the number of members in the family. So if it's a family of 1, a family of 2, a family of 4 generally is sort of like the base number. For a family of 1, I don't have the figures in front of me, but if I remember correctly,
Ballpark.
yeah, the extremely low would be in the vicinity of about $11,000 a year. I'm sorry, yeah, a year, yes. When you get to the level of 4 members in the family, maybe in the vicinity of about $26,000.
So for your first example, it would seem like that individual would have to make at least 1.5 or maybe twofold more money minus taxes to be disqualified. So I'm guessing you don't have a lot of people bumping out of the program.
No, we don't.
Thank you, sir.
No, we don't.
Roberto, one more question. These 93 that we have, I just want to make sure, I always ask you this question, in Ascension Parish, does that 93 include the city of, the town of Sorrento, or Sorrento has a separate one?
No. In Ascension Parish, there is the parish program with 101 vouchers, and then there is the city of Donaldsonville with 95 vouchers. The other 2 municipalities, Sorrento and Gonzales, they don't have a Section 8 program. So anybody from the waiting list that is from Sorrento would be in the parish program, or if they want to be in the Donaldsonville program also. We have an interchange between municipalities and the parish.
Okay, that's all. I just want to make clear that Donaldsonville is the only one that have vouchers, the rest do not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen? Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item number 6, Mr. President.
On the, recently we got a call that we got approved to demo the Santa Mar building, Mr. Kluat's district. We got to get every stage approved to make sure FEMA will pay us. So we got approved $200,000 to demo that building, which we're going to put together to bid out. That's what I want to let you know. And then the next stage, we always, Rick does a great job of being cautious to make sure we get paid. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 8, number 7, the council committee reports, which are heard on the first meeting of the month. There are none tonight. Item number 8, the consent agenda. Does anyone have any desire to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Not to remove a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess it's item A, where we're taking in yet another mile of roads into the system. I'm very comfortable with that now, assuming that, and what I want an answer for is that I assume those roads are grandfathered in terms of Transportation Committee recommendations to us tonight before the passage, Madam Chairwoman, of our taxing districts ordinance. Is that correct? And if it is, do we have any indication of when we will sort of catch up in the grandfathering and start applying the new law?
Yes, in answer to your questions, yes, that is, these are roads that would have already been accepted and already built many years ago, or at least a year ago. So Aaron may be able to answer more thoroughly when we might catch up, or that might be a question for the transportation.
Yeah, just a backlog question. I mean,
Sure.
I'm going to approve this tonight.
Yeah, the Transportation Department with, I believe, Mr. Anlow and Ms. Rabelais are working with an engineering firm to develop you should say almost a pricing mechanism, a per-mile pricing mechanism of maintenance for the new roads when they come in. That's the next step in this process. We're hoping in the next 2 months we'll have that done.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Satterley. So since there are no items to be removed from the consent agenda, will the secretary please read the consent agenda?
Roads to be accepted into the parish maintenance system: Silver Oaks Drive, 1303.7 feet. Legacy Lakes Drive, 2868.63 feet. Legacy Oaks Lane, 1457.63 feet. Resolution ENG 19100, commitment for LRSP project application for Ascension Parish. Resolution ENG 19101, commitment for LRSP project application for City of Gonzales. Resolution ENG 19102, commitment for LRSP project application for City of Donaldsonville. Resolution ENG 19103, commitment for SRTP project application for City of Donaldsonville. Approval of recommendation of ACE Group for 2019 property and casualty insurance presented by Harry Robert Insurance. Approval of substantial completion Gitro General Contractor Santa Mar Substation Number 62 driveway replacement. Renewal of fiscal agency agreement between Ascension Parish Government and Hancock Whitney for the year 2019. Renewal of contract with Dr. Robert Barnes, Ascension Counseling Center, to provide psychiatric and mental health services to mental health and substance abuse patients who are residents of Ascension Parish. Total compensation shall not exceed $213,200. Amendment number 2 to professional services contract with BFI Waste Services, LLC, doing business as Republic Services of Baton Rouge for dumpster rentals at various locations around the parish, to extend current contract to April 30th, 2019 for an additional amount of $41,000. Amendment number 1 to legal services contract with Rodell Parsons Employment Law Services, and the scope compensation will increase by $100,000, total contract not to exceed $200,000. Bid items to accept the lowest responsive bid as follows: Type HP High Performance Coal Mix Coastal Bridge Company, LLC. Supply and delivery of liquid CL2 for water treatment, DPC Enterprises, $1,030 per container. Waterman C20 Canal Gate Valve, Quality Site Works Materials. CRS2 Asphalt Emulsion, Asphalt Products Unlimited Incorporated, $4.05 per gallon. That's picked up by the parish. Amendment number 1 to the master contract for professional service utilities, general engineering, and technical support services for Hartman Engineering, Inc. for the design of a new Oak Grove sewer treatment plant not to exceed $300,000. Total amount of contract shall not exceed $450,000.
Thank you very much.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman John Cagnolati to approve the consent agenda. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 9, committee recommendations. Personnel Committee, Mr. John Cagnolati.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Personnel Committee met on February the 5th, 2019. Interviews were conducted and the following recommendations are being made. Recommendations for the Communications District Board. A new appointment, Sheriff Bobby Weber to a 4-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert to approve Sheriff Bobby Weber to the Communications District Board. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Rick Weber to a 4-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Randy Cluott, a second by Councilman Benny Johnson to approve Rick Weber as to continue in his service to the Communications District Board. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Chuck Montero to a 4-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by
Second.
Councilman Oliver Johnson, and a second by Councilman, Oliver, I'm messing you up. Oliver Joseph?
You didn't call him Alvin anyway.
I didn't call you.
I'm the one that usually mix up. That's okay.
That's okay. All right, Oliver and Councilman Cluott
This ain't working.
for Mr. Speaker.
Chuck Montero.
Mr. Chuck Montero to continue his service on the Communications District Board. Any objections now that we have the names, the motion straight? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Robin Brunke.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson.
Second.
Second by Councilman Todd Lambert to approve the gentleman's
Madam.
Miss
Robin.
Robin
Brunke.
Brunke's continuation of her service on the Communication District Board. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Preston Landry to a 4-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert and a second by Councilman Benny Johnson to approve Mr. Preston for Thank you so much. Mr. Preston Landry for his continuation of his service on the Communication Districts Board. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Vic Palmer to a 4-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman
Second.
Randy Cluott, a second by Councilman, where'd that come from? Bill Dawson to reappoint Mr. Vic Palmer. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Recommendations for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Recommendations are ranked in order for these 3 openings. Number 1, reappointment of Wade Scheck-Snyder to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Randy Cluott and a second by Mr. Bill Dawson to reappoint Wade Scheck-Snyder for a 2-year term. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Matthew Pryor for 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Bill Dawson, second by Councilman Travis Turner to reappoint Matthew Pryor for a 2-year term. Any objections?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion for Mr. Pettit for Mr. Pryor.
Do I have a second for that motion? Hearing none, that motion dies for lack of a second. Have a motion and a second for Mr. Pryor for a 2-year term. Any questions? Any objections?
I object.
Have one objection. Cinnamon, we'll have a roll call.
Press the button.
Everybody. So we will open the voting machines and vote.
Wait. This is Jeff Pettit.
No, this is for Matthew Pryor.
It says Jeff
It
Pettit.
says on the screen, Jeff Pettit.
Matthew Pryor.
Matthew
There you
Pryor.
go.
Oliver.
Mr. Joseph? Thank you very
Hit
much.
that button before?
It wasn't cooperating.
Oh.
All right, the votes have been recorded. Close the machines, please.
Go back to.
Thank you very much.
You was waiting on the call.
Mr. Pryor is appointed to another 2-year term.
Reappointment of Ken Furman to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Cluott, a second by Mr. Dawson to appoint Mr. Ken Furman to a 2-year term. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Recommendations for the Fire Protection District Number 3 Board. Reappointment of Tracy Burns to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Bill Dawson, a second by Councilman Benny Johnson to appoint Ms. Burns to another 2-year term. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Commander to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman Aaron Lawland to appoint Mr. David Commander to a 2-year term. I didn't call him Lawless. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappoint Walter Leftwich to a 2-year term.
Second.
I have a motion by several people and a second by several people. We'll give it to Mr. Benny Johnson and the second to Mr. Randy Cluott to appoint Mr. Walter Leftwich to a 2-year term. Any objection?
Terry,
Yes.
quick statement. Once again, just remember, keep Bobby Leftwich in our prayers.
Yes, absolutely. If you would all remember Miss Bobby, who is not well, Mr. Walter has served this community, and she by his side with distinction for many, many years. Thank you, Aaron, for remembering them. So, Mr. Walter Leftwich to a 2-year term. I have a motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Madam Chair, recommendations for the Waterways Commission. Reappointment of Ronald Breaux to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Cluott,
Todd Lambert.
second by Councilman Todd Lambert to reappoint Mr. Ronald Breaux to a 2-year term to the Waterway Commission. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Jared Mobile to a 2-year term.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Cluott, a second by Councilman Bill Dawson to reappoint Jared Mobile to a 2-year term on the Waterways Commission. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of John Tomplay to a 2-year term.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert and a second by Councilman Benny Johnson to reappoint John Tomplay to a 2-year term. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Reappointment of Will Rieger to a 2-year term.
Motion by Councilman Benny Johnson,
Second.
second by Councilman Aaron Lawler to reappoint Mr. Will Riger to a 2-year term. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all my able-bodied councilmen who helped me keep that straight. So let's move on to general business. Item number 10, approval of a servitude to grant ExxonMobil Pipeline Company for a pipeline, Section 1, T10S, R2E, Ascension Parish, Segment 1, LA, Ascension 079. Mr. Parrington.
Yes, we have 2 proposed pipeline servitudes here. I have been negotiating with Exxon. You can approve them like this, but my recommendation is that we include in these negotiations, and I've provided that to them, that they be responsible for any, if we do any road projects, they be responsible for any cost associated with covering or moving the pipelines. Otherwise, I have no problem with it.
I'll make that motion to as amended.
So we have a motion to amend this item number 10 to include that they will, that ExxonMobil will bear any cost associated with pipeline moval for transportation projects.
Right.
That, I have a motion by Councilman Dawson. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Satterley. Now we'll have discussion, gentlemen. I see lots of hands up.
Well, I can let them
Mr. Lawler.
I just want to say make it inclusive of encasing, relocating, and reburying the pipelines. I've been in contact with our transportation department, and this is something we're going to try and do anytime in the future, that we have additional pipelines come through the parish, because what we're having right now is we're doing road work, and we're coming across a lot of pipelines where it's costing us a lot of money. And in this situation, we may have an opportunity in the future to add some turn lanes, which would not be extremely expensive in general. You're talking maybe $500,000, maybe $250,000, but the cost would increase tremendously if we have to go back and encase pipelines. So that's the reason that we're doing this, and I've talked to the transportation department with the administration, and this is something they approve also.
So, Mr. Dawson, are you willing to amend your motion to that
Well, how about we
effect?
say anything associated with the
Any cost associated with it.
relocation for a road. I mean, I don't.
Well, it wouldn't just be relocation, that's my only concern.
Or encasing.
Encasing also, because sometimes they don't want to move the pipe, but they can encase it or bury it lower.
Don't help me, make anything associated with,
With traffic improvements.
there you go.
That's what I told them it had to be cover every cost.
Yes.
All costs associated with any road improvement projects we made.
I'd like to amend.
You're gonna get there, Randy. I've got hands up everywhere. So, Mr.
Chairman.
Lambert.
Yeah, and O'Neill, we already have the permitting process
Right.
now.
Right, but this
So
would be in the
whatever we
servitude.
add,
that-
I mean, yeah,
We're
'cause-
just gonna include this in our servitude, if we grant them a servitude that they've got to pay. If we sometime come along and wanna do a road project, they gotta bear all the costs related to the
Sure,
pipeline.
okay, just make sure that's put in.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kluwat.
Yes, I'd like to further amend that we include drainage in that also.
Okay.
Any
I
road,
will.
any
drainage.
road or drainage project.
I'll second that.
So we have a,
Mr. Wick.
Amended.
Add sewer.
hold on.
Utility.
Look, here's what I think.
Utility.
I think this has got way too much, this is getting way too complicated, amendment after amendment. Can we get this language cleaned up, get it right, and get it back to us for an up or down vote? Can we defer, let legal handle getting this written up correctly, and then get it back to us? Would that be the simple version? Are we having?
We don't need that, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chairman.
We already have this in the permitting.
Mr. Parrington, your opinion, please.
I think I can add it, we can provide it to them. I don't think we need to bring it back. I'll include utilities, roads, or drainage, and I think that's that covers everything.
They have to pay.
Well, Mr. Daniel is sitting in the back saying, and sewer.
Well, I think
That's
utilities, that
utilities.
covers
That's
it.
utilities.
You're going to cover
That's
utilities under that, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is this seems like an awful lot of extra language to me, but if it's okay,
It's already on the
I mean, we just
Well, they
need to
still
get the
have to
language
agree
right
with
it. Yeah.
before we vote on it. Yes, Mr. Satterley?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I may be helpful, I think if we just get Mr. Kluwat to re-express his amended motion in my second, we could have a vote.
Yes.
Can you do that, Randy?
Yes, I can.
Thank
Madam
you,
Chair.
Randy.
I would like to amend the motion to include all transportation, drainage, and utilities. 100% of the cost.
And my second stands.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself from this item and the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The chair recognizes that. So, any questions, gentlemen? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 11, likewise read, all of those, approval of the servitude grant to ExxonMobil. Randy, do you want to restate your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to make the motion to approve this with amended language to cover all transportation, drainage, and utilities projects that ExxonMobil will have to cover 100% of the costs associated with it within that servitude.
I'll second that as well.
Have a motion by Councilman Kluwat and a second by Councilman Satterley. Mr. Dawson.
A question. I'm looking at that description, O'Neill, it says Town of Sorrento. Is it in the Town of Sorrento?
It shows, they did title work and showed us as the owner of the property. That's what, where it's located, I'm not 100% sure.
We see the, certain tract of land containing 7.47 acres, and it says R10S, R3E, Town of Sorrento.
It could be, but it's owned by the Parish of Ascension. The property's owned, they're going to the property owner.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah, I'm
want to
not,
make
this
sure
is,
that we're not.
It could be the post office address like they call Gonzales, That's what I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right,
I
gentlemen,
think
so
this is a
that,
map right here.
right, but they go to the landowner, not to the, it's in our property that we own.
we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions? Any objections? And one recusal, Mr. Benny Johnson. No objections, that motion passes. Item number 12, approval to amend the utilities contract with GSA to add $350,300 for the Riverton
So moved.
Force Main.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Lawler, a second by Councilman Satterley. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Planning and zoning recommendations. Item number 13, zoning review, oh my goodness, ID PZ-1915.19 lot TP-1-A-1-B-1 and TP-2-A, being the re-subdivision of tract TP-1-A-1-A and TP-Z for Thomas Pertwee, located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 429, Cornerview Road, approximately 4,500 feet east of Louisiana Highway 73, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential, RM, to mixed-use 2, MU2. Zoning Commission recommends approval.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman Cagnolati. Are there any questions? Mr. Dawson.
So maybe Lance gonna have to help me here because I'm trying to look at this map, Lance, and so I see it's 6 point something acres, and is it both of these lots, the TP2A and this TP1A 1B1? Both of those are going to be MU2?
Correct, yes, sir.
And so is they going to have, okay, and the MU2, I mean, has a shop in that, is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yeah, there's a shop, but what he wants to do is construct office buildings, so it'll be office buildings.
So there won't be any shops in it. Well, does he
No.
have a non-conforming right now?
Yes, sir, he has a non-conforming now.
And there won't be any
There won't be-
expansion of the shop or the
Correct.
yard, is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me see, wait, hold on just a second. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 15, an introduction of an ordinance, the budget amendment number 2 to amend the 2019 budget. This is a Finance Committee recommendation. The chair entertains a motion to have a motion to introduce by Councilman Benny Johnson. Item number 16, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code, Chapter 9.5, flood damage
Motion.
prevention.
Motion.
The motion to introduce by Councilman Lawler. Any other comments or questions, gentlemen? If not, item number 17.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.